many times have you heard the phrase, sometimes indeed from people who've been a little bit slow, shall we say, or unenthusiastic in their condemnation of the race riots or the Farage riots, whatever you prefer, that we've been seeing unfold on our streets in recent days? How many times have you heard them say we need to have a sensible conversation about immigration? Do you know what happens to them when we have sensible conversations about immigration? They reach for ever more provocative and absurd lies, up to and including, of course, two-tier policing, which is the phrase du jour for the kind of people who have both fomented and contributed to the civil disorder that we're all enduring. A sensible conversation about immigration. What they mean when they say that, the people who never talk about anything else, what they mean when they say that is we have to keep closing people down or shouting ever louder until everybody either agrees with us that you should judge people by their ethnicity or by their origins, their geographical origins, or anybody who objects to that has just been crushed into silence, either through intimidation or a form of, I suppose, intellectual ennui. I just can't be bothered anymore arguing with you people who believe things that aren't true. It's just exhausting. It's a bit like what Twitter has become in recent years, but I guess that's a fairly well documented phenomenon anyway. So I have had many, many sensible conversations about immigration over the years. The point at which they cease to be sensible is when people ring me to tell me that the immigrants get free houses or free cars or free shops, or that they have a better life than people that were born here. That is the point at which the conversation ceases to be a sensible conversation about immigration. And because the conversations about immigration have been insensible for so long, I think we can all agree that the entire tone of conversation ended. It changed enormously in 2016. I don't know if you remember the Breaking Point poster that appeared shortly before Joe Cox was assassinated by a white supremacist racist terrorist, or whether you remember the front pages of the newspapers that we ran through yesterday to point out the hypocrisy of, for example, the Daily Mail celebrating the rejection of race rioters when pretty much every front page they had in the 3 weeks running up to the 2016 referendum vote could have been a banner at a race riot, at one of the riots that we've been seeing this week. So you have this scenario where people who want to have completely insensible conversations about immigration, the kind of people who think that you can blame every Muslim in the country for the actions of one extremist, or even you could blame every Muslim in the country for the actions of one person who wasn't even a Muslim. That's entirely insensible. It's borderline insane. It's certainly delusional, it's certainly unhinged, but they are the people who keep saying we need to have a sensible conversation about immigration. Just think about it. It's absolutely bonkers. And what's incredible, and I want to make it clear before I look at the policies that have created the crisis that we find ourselves facing today, is that the Labour Party have gone along with it. I don't want anybody to think, as I now launch into a brief critique of why the care sector is in a perilous state, and why British universities could soon be facing some very, very serious problems as a direct consequence of Conservative policies. Rhetorically, at least, Keir Starmer's Labour Party has done next to nothing to push the conversation back in the opposite direction. So here's a headline. Bear with me a moment. All right, if you are a bit racist, then I think you'll react to this headline differently from how I would. So here's the headline. Well, no, maybe that's not fair. You don't have to be racist. You've got legitimate concerns about immigration, right? You've got legitimate, or at least you think they are legitimate concerns. And I respect your freedom of thought. I really do. So here are your legitimate concerns. There's far too much of it. I don't mean you. You don't mean the people that you know. You don't mean the nurses that you interact with, or the teachers, or the lawyers, or the accountants, or the hospitality staff, or the delivery driver. You don't mean the people that you encounter. Some do, of course. There's some horrific footage of a bus driver being abused in the roundest fashion that's doing the rounds today. But you know that there's far too many of them. Not the ones you see, maybe the ones that are sort of, that they're living over in the next street, and the kind of ones that appear in the stories, the ones with all the houses and the massive handout. Yeah, them. There's too many of them. So you're one of those people. And although you probably think that I'm being facetious, I do have some sympathy for you up until the point that you are shown the truth and you choose to continue to believe the things that are not true. So I do have some sympathy for you. You hear this headline: visa curbs spark rapid fall in new migrants. It's on the front page of today's Times newspaper. Visa falls spark rapid fall in new migrants. That's great, right? That is absolutely brilliant. Poor old Rishi Sunak, he should have hung around for a little bit longer and seen the fruits of his policies designed to deliver precisely what this front page headline describes. A rapid fall in new migrants. What do we want? Fewer migrants. When do we want it? 1959. So that's great news, right? And then you get the second bit of the line. And what I'm interested in, if you think this is something to celebrate, is the point at which you go, maybe this isn't actually the brilliant news that I thought it was. And I don't know if you ever reach that point. I don't know if that point is ever actually reached. But let's see, shall we? So the stand first, the sort of mini headline below the main headline, contains the lines: requests to work or study in UK down by a third. Right, we still celebrating? So people wanting to come here to work, and the way that this visa system works, the job would already exist. It is, you would be applying to fill an established vacancy or to take up a place in an educational institution that you were qualified to take up, right? Requests to work or study in UK down by a third. Are we still celebrating? I don't know. So then the story itself begins. Britain's high levels of immigration are falling significantly after curbs on visas contributed to a sharp decline in foreign workers and students applying to the UK. The number of migrants and their family members seeking to come to Britain on skilled worker, health and care and study visas fell by more than a third in July to 91,300 compared with last year. That's a big number. That's a big drop. Are you still celebrating? Is this still great news? Great, yeah, we need fewer of them. We need fewer skilled workers. We need fewer health and care workers. And we certainly need fewer students, bloody students, coming over here learning stuff. And then we come to the third paragraph. The fall has been particularly stark in monthly applications for health and care visas, with an 82% decline in their number to just 2,900 in July. The number of people applying to study in the UK has fallen by 15% to 69,500. And remember, the fees that are paid by foreign students are higher than the fees paid by domestic students, which means that they help to subsidise the education of our children, or even us, if we're thinking of going back into education a little late in life. And then the fourth paragraph. The previous Conservative government banned those coming to study in the UK and those on health and social care visas from bringing family members with them. We already know about the enormous costs that can be accrued by these people. And the kicker for me, of course, as someone who leans to the more equable and compassionate side of politics, or the left, as some people prefer to call it, Labour has said it has no plans to change the policy. Two things going on here. One is, I think, a fairly obvious reaction to being made to feel less welcome. A bit like when everybody voted Leave to get rid of all the immigrants and they left. And they went, oh, no, I didn't mean you. But it was too late because they were already back in Poland or France or Germany. And the second thing that's happening here is a politically advantageous to Keir Starmer if you accept the necessity of appeasing or pandering to or looking after people who think that the numbers are more important than the realities, who will simply celebrate. As I said to you yesterday, the numbers are going to come down so far and so fast, partly because of these disgusting policies, but also because of the spikes delivered by Ukraine and Hong Kong. So by the autumn, when the numbers are released, I would not be surprised, and nor would the head of the migration watchdog, if the figure has come down to below 200,000. Whereas, of course, at the moment it's, I think it's 764,000, the highest it has ever been. So they're going to plummet. They would have plummeted anyway, even without alienating health and care workers or students. So in many ways, these policies will have helped Keir Starmer deliver on his questionable promise to reduce those figures, those enormous sums of 764,000 and the year before 685,000. The problem is that various sectors have enormous problems. Michael is in Basel, and he's delighted. He says, the best news I've heard for years. 130,000 vacancies at the moment in the social care sector. It's the best news that Michael in Basildon has heard for years. And that's what I want to address today. Not him specifically, but there are, of course, plenty of people who do think or will think that this is good news. What is the sensible thing you can say about this? How do we intelligently address the fact that even if you subscribe to me at least, profoundly unpleasant rhetoric that we should, quotes, train our own, end quotes. Who are you going to train? The people setting fire to hotels? People lobbing wheelie bins at the police? We're going to get them into the care homes, are we, to look after your nan? So how do you have a sensible conversation about the disastrous consequences of policies designed to appeal to people who want immigration reduced, like Michael in Basildon, no questions asked. I don't care. I just want the numbers to be lower, despite the fact that it will damage every single sector of our society, every single level of our society. And if you think that the kind of troglodytes throwing bricks at the police this week are going to be somehow rendered decent members of society by a massive drop in the number of foreign workers and foreign students coming here, then I've got several bridges to sell you. Mark points out the problem is that you can't debate with idiots. It's a living, Mark. I think you have to try, don't you? You have to at least try to do so. But all of the people, of course, who talk about having a sensible conversation about immigration actually mean the opposite. The last thing they want to do is talk about why it is a good idea to have hundreds of thousands of vacancies that could be quite easily filled by a visa system that was working quite well. So I'm going to open up the phone lines. What I really want to know, because I haven't got an answer to this. I know what you're thinking. I've got an answer for everything. I haven't. I've got an opinion about everything, but I haven't got an answer to this. I haven't actually got an opinion about this. And I hope I'm not even falling foul of the Overton window by asking this question, but the fact that the Labour Party's got no plans to change these policies means that we have to, I think. Why? How? How do you do it? What is the conversation that recognises the necessity of high-ish immigration in the low hundreds of thousands, without stopping people who we need here coming? So there are two ways into this. One of them, as you can tell, is a little bit flabby intellectually, because what I want, I can tell it's flabby intellectually because the producer's looking at me with a very confused face. She gets very cross if I don't ask a nice, simple, encapsulated question. You'd think, wouldn't you, after all these years, she'd got used to my verbal meanderings. I know you are. You can still ring in and answer these questions, even without knowing what the questions are. I've got enormous faith in you for doing that, but it makes her job considerably harder, for which I apologise. But what I'm looking for, the sort of golden egg this morning, is how you square the necessity of immigration in these sectors with the rhetoric and the politics of constant insistence that it's all too high. I can't see the way through it. I've talked to you about what they say in private versus what they say in public. What they say in public is we need to bring it down. We need to bring it down. What they say in private is we need foreign workers to come here. So what do we do if you want to buy into the we can train our own or whatever it may be? What do we do in the meantime? Let's pretend it's true that we can take armies of people who are currently doing something else or doing nothing and turn them into nurses and turn them into care workers and turn them into veterinary surgeons and turn them into chefs and turn them into waiters and turn them into hotel receptionists and hotel managers. So we can easily do it. We can take some fella when he gets out of jail for setting fire to a hotel. We can stick him on a training scheme, and this time next week he'll be the manager at Claridge's. So let's pretend that's true. What do we do in the meantime? What do we do in the meantime? And the second way into it is how it's affecting you. So if you run a care home, I've had some lovely conversations over the years with people who run care homes. If you run a care home, how hard is it now? If you're in hospitality, and does anybody know how this is going to impact upon the educational sector? And what does it mean to British universities to see a sharp fall in the number of students coming here from overseas? What will it impact? What will the impact be? So how does it affect your world? 0345 6060 973. And how do we have the sensible conversation? What is the sensible conversation? If both parties are in support of policies that suck potential staff out of crucial what is the sensible conversation about immigration? Because I'm not sure I know, and I do this for a living. Hit the numbers now, you will get through. 0345 6060 973. What does the sensible conversation about immigration sound like? In the context of figures that show it's coming down, woohoo, but it's hitting sectors that we really need. Do you see the problem? I hope you do, but if you don't, it's probably my fault.